My job as a project manager, anyone here a project manager? Brilliant, you are. So, if you're not project managers here, be honest, do all of you understand the need for project management? Anyone not think so? Be honest. Fine, that's good. So, by trade I'm a consultant. And when I first started out in consultancy, I didn't really understand what project management was about. And then what you do is the more you get involved in projects, the more you kind of understand the need for it and also the complexity behind it and how planning for a project doesn't start when the project starts. I know it sounds stupid. It starts way in advance by identifying what kind of project you have. Now, typically there's two kinds of project. No, that's the wrong way. So to go forward, you go down. Okay. Fine. So, before you start your project, what kind of project are you looking at undertaking? Is it strategic or operational? The easiest way to look at that is, do you have a fixed timeline? Or is it generally going to be something that meanders on forever and ever and ever and ever? So, something that has got a fixed timeline is generally operational. Anything which comes in underline within the company's overall strategy could involve a number of different projects, number of different people, number of different inputs is generally called strategic. Now, strategic, as I said, are meandering. They tend to have a future goal at some point moving forward. So some of them you might find is now you're live with your systems, you're now undertaking further tweaks, further tweaks, further tweaks, and it doesn't necessarily have a future end goal. And this is rolling. It's got multiple dependencies and have multiple projects underneath. So for argument's sake, we did a re-implementation for the FA. Now part of that was practice, part of it was CRM, part of it was integrations, part of it was Dynamics GP. So there was lots and lots and lots of overarching smaller projects in line with it. But although it has many dependencies, it had a fixed deadline. So although it had strategic outlines, it was also operational. So this is my point. The problem with doing strategic strategic projects is that they don't always necessarily have a conclusion, which means you don't get that quick fix win. You might find that you undertake a project and it kind of meanders into nothing. Stop staring at me, Dave. You're making me uneasy. As there's no fixed outcome, these can be less popular amongst businesses. So basically what you want to find is we need to undertake this particular project. What's going to be the outcome? We have no idea. Well, why are we going to undertake it then? This is the problem with strategic projects. Again, with strategic projects, you tend to have a program manager who oversees lots and lots and lots of individual projects. As I said, with the FA, we had re-implementing Proactis, re-implementing GP, CRM, integrations, reporting, so on and so forth. So they had a program manager and multiple project managers underneath. But again, it was actually operational because it had to be done in a shorter period of time. It was very, very much deadline based. It did have a lot of dependencies though, but generally operations may not. Anything operational could be from a project that's half a day. Could be a day, could be a week, so on and so forth. And because you've got a deadline, must be finished on that, everyone likes a little win. Yes, brilliant, we've moved it on time, on budget, we've hit it. Operational projects are more popular as they're tangible. You can touch them and go, yes, we've done that, we said we were going to do it on time and on budget. With strategic projects, it's difficult, and it's difficult to prove the success of strategic projects. The difference between strategic and operational is operational tends to have a single project manager. That's not necessarily true because you can have a project manager for different elements of that operational project. So realistically, in this room, what kind of projects have you been undertaking? Strategic or operational? It's all operational. But you've got elements strategic. And the reason I'm saying this is there's lots and lots of buzzwords around project management and running projects. Oh, is it this, is it that? It's not. It's one of them and none of them and all of them all at once. So, when you're planning a project, what do you need to do? I need to look at the screen for this. So, define your vision. What do we want to achieve? Who's driving this vision? Why are we doing this? What are your goals? Is this part of a larger strategic plan? Or is the goal shorter term and based on a deadline? Access where you are. Where are you now? How much time is it going to take? How much effort is it going to take to get to where you need to be? Oh shit. Sugar, I said, sorry. Determine your priorities and objectives. What do we need to do first? What is the most important thing? And then the bit that always gets missed is what do we need to do second? What do we need to do third? You need to get a priority of list, the priority of things in a list. And do those priorities align with your vision and your goals? Define responsibilities. Who's the project manager? Who's the finance lead? Who are the key stakeholders? Who are the budget holders? Who are the sponsors? You need to make sure before the project starts that all these are actually identified. And measure and evaluate results. So that's a very, really weird way of saying, is it working? Have we hit timelines? It's very important to put timelines and goals in to make sure. When have we done UAT? Have we done the install? Have users done the testing? Have they done the training? Yes, yes, yes. At those particular moments, you can say, are we going to be successful because we've completed those? So let's plan a project. What's the most important thing about a project? Louise, on a project. Brilliant. So, this is our project. Anyone here use GP? Fair enough. Okay, does anyone know the story about Dynamics GP? It is dead in the water. It's Microsoft pulled the plug. So our finance system, you as a finance department, is end of life. We need to start planning for a replacement. On a project, Louise, what's the first question?
What is my budget?
And? Next one.
You could have briefed them before. Yeah, you could, yeah.
What's the timeline? Cool, so our finance system's end of life, and when do we need to start planning for replacement? The first thing we need to figure out is when do we need to do it by. Now open to everyone else. This is an open forum. So if we go back to our vision. We've got our vision. What is the vision? So replace the finance system.
What you needed to do.
Sorry, say that again.
What you needed to do.
Yep. Okay, so how do you get to that bit? Who do you engage with?
Stakeholders.
What do you engage start again. What do you engage the stakeholders for? What do they need? What do they want? What would they like? So this is going to be key requirements. Can anyone actually read that? Kind of going off at an angle. Cool. So we've got our vision. We've got our vision, which is replace our finance system. We've got our goal, which is to replace our finance system by this date within this budget. Assess where you are. So is that engaging with the stakeholders? Yes. It's not a trick question. It's a yes or no. So where you are is how much do you want to take with you? So how much do you want to replicate what you've got at the moment, and how much do you want to be able to change?
Or just want to throw it in the bin start.
Or throw it in the bin and start again. I'm a great believer in that one. So determine your priorities and objectives. What is the main priority? I'd say it's engaging with stakeholders. Anyone disagree? Anyone offer an alternative? I'll take that as a no.
That's right, because stakeholders could be anyone, end users,
That's the thing.
managers, everyone needs to be involved. But every unit is stakeholder, not just very senior people.
That's a very good point, Dave. So I'm a great believer in avoid involving management until the last minute, because it tends to be the end users who know the faults of their existing system and how they'd like to improve it. So that's a really good point. So stakeholders doesn't have to be FD, FC, anything along those lines. It can be Doris, the AP clerk. It can be Dave, the credit controller. Because these are people who've got the bums on the seats. They're kind of on the coal face. They can understand how these things work. And don't be too afraid to engage with the stakeholders, because once you've got stakeholder engagement, what you then start to do is you manage the biggest part of any project, which is change. Does anyone here like change? No.
I worked in it for 10 years.
Fine. So, that is one of the biggest things as a priority. We spoke to a client this week, and the priority is not necessarily putting a new system in. At the end of the day, software is software. It's making sure that you can manage the change that matches your vision and your goals, responsibilities, and where you're going to go in the future. Change is the biggest obstacle on any project, in the fact that no one likes change. Human nature determines that change can actually make you feel insecure in your own job. So it's good. So what we've got now is we've got our vision, we've got our goal, we've engaged with our stakeholders, and we know where we are. Priority. What's the next thing we need to do? So we need a new finance system. Have we identified what that new finance system is yet? Sorry. Yep. And because you're engaging with your stakeholders, what will you have created? Probably an RFP. Perfect. Priorities and objectives. So we've got our priorities, we've got a tender and RFP. What will we ideally need to do to keep in line with our timeline? What do we need to do with that RFP? We need to have it back and answered by a certain date. Perfect. So then what we've got our priorities, we've got our responsibilities. Who is doing what? Who is creating the RFP? Who's the project sponsor? Who's the project manager? Who are the key stakeholders? So it's again revisiting constantly all different elements. It's not, unfortunately, it's not waterfall. It can't be that, then that, then that, then that. It has to be relatively agile in the fact that you go, these parts may not be necessarily in order and need to be fluid in how they change. So we've identified our responsibilities. We've decided on a new finance system. How do we do that? I can't remember to write implement. So what you do is your planning process starts again. So we've planned this part of the project. So we've planned outlining our vision, we've planned our goals, we've actually assessed where we are, we've planned how to determine our priorities, and we've gone out to tender. What we then do is we then start a completely new project, which is implementing the finance system. And all this is just revisit, 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 revisit. Well done, you've got a new finance system and it was free. Any questions? None.
Said it all about project management. What can we say?
Explained it so well.
Thanks very much.
We want to be like you.
No, you don't.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing with Paul Ramos and his team and how they're carrying out? Because that's a slightly different.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And it's not just that one, it's potentially, John, you spoke to me about one yesterday. Yeah, B&P potentially as well. So Chelsea Football Club currently use Dynamics GP, and John and I put it in there 18, 19 years ago? Long time ago. So we've got a really good relationship with the FD there. So they have obviously been given, excuse me, the end of life information with regard to GP. So where you've got the end of life things, specifically something from GP, and when I went into them recently, is you have got a timeline of, he said, what was it? It was August 2026. So that's the deadline. What you have to do in this kind of situation is you have to work back from then to figure out when you need to hit certain milestones. You can't start now and go, oh, it's going to be then. You have to work backwards. So what we said to Paul Ramos is that if you want to go live with the new system then, what you realistically need to do is you need to have it fully up and running and fully tested by April 2026. To have it fully implemented and tested by April 2026, you need to have finished your UAT and sign off by March 2026. So in order for that to be done, you need to have had the system put in place and users trained by no later than October, November 2025, to give you 6 months. October 2025, so what you've then got is everyone's trained and in place by October 2025. Realistically, for an implementation project, from build to handing over for UAT, including design sessions, so on and so forth, you're looking at 3 to 4 months. So we go back from November, so it's, October, September, July, June. But we have to take into account June, July.
Yeah.
Thanks, it was going backwards. July, August, September, yeah, fine. Sometime around about the summer. But you have to take into account they're a football club. Transfer windows, budget times. So realistically, you need to add a couple of months on top of that. So what you need to make sure is that particular part of the project is done by February 2025. At which point, he went, oh. So how are you going to do your tender? Well, we need to figure out what we're doing. Okay, so how are you going to do that? What we did when we initially put ProActis in 10 years ago, Dave? 8 years ago?
2018.
6 years ago, yeah. So 6 years ago, my photo, I just remember, my photo was when you and I were working at Chelsea and they brought around the FA Cup. I've just remembered that. So what we did when we put ProActis in 6 years ago, they wanted a replacement for their really outdated requisitioning system called eRequest. So it was put in as a lift and shift. We will replace what you've got there and then, but then look to improve it, which they have never done, despite being contacted many, many times. So what we have said to them, as part of your process, what you need to do is identify your current setup and use of your procurement system, namely ProActis, where we will go through and check everything, present back to you exactly what you have, train you, give you the art of the possible, because what that will then do is it will then give you a procurement and AP side of your RFP. Brilliant, they said. When do you need to start? September 2024, we told them. So that's how we've gone from a deadline for one particular customer to working back to how we can then, or we are going to be, it's just a case of prodding them a little bit for this one particular customer, is identifying and helping them build their RFP around procurement, around accounts payable. So that what I can then do is go, right, that is everything we need from day one. That is everything we would like from day two. This is everything will be a nice fluffy add-on. We will hopefully also be doing the same thing for the FA, B&P, potentially other clients as well. Does that answer what you wanted, Sarah? Thanks everyone.